I will mention this, which I mentioned at the last class, that we're not going to, the previous class, in other words, two before this one, we explained in detail what the message of chapter 27 is. And again, it was unusual, but it was because of the important information over here that the whole class was only orally. In other words, it was the message orally. The message of the Pedic itself was explained orally, and it took up the whole class. So you can go on to the previous classes on koshertube.com. At this point, the other website is not advanced. It's not updated, rather. So koshertube.com. You may type in Tanya. Be able to see two classes before this one. You have the entire class which demonstrates this important message or expounds on this important message. And as I note, the entire class was given without the text. So you have the complete message there. Last week we did an important part of the text, but we will go on where we left off this past week, and that's in chapter 27. And the words ve'ein hakosav. This is about 8 lines from the beginning of the chapter. If you're holding the English, if you follow with the English text, it's just about an eighth into or a tenth into the chapter. Ve'ein hakosav medaber b'tzadikim. And I want to just the literal translation of these words, which these are the words we're holding. The pasuk is not speaking about tzaddikim, to likorim zainim, to call them zainim chas v'shalom. But let me just give a little bit of. I noticed when I left off, I felt that there was something which I left out because this was very, very important. That the message was that somebody who is down experiences this down spirit because he feels bad that he's challenged with such lowly challenges, and this itself brings him down. As we noted, that is like a catch-22. His spirits are brought down. That is one of the tactics of the Yetzer Hara, to catch this person in his net. Yetzer Hara goes after those who are melancholy, those who are depressed or maybe not so strong, those who are melancholy, those who are down-spirited. That is his best target. So this is a yid which his sadness is not about. Again, Al Rebbe went through different levels of challenges which a person has, which can bring his spirit down. The previous chapters, or the previous different part of from the beginning of from the Chavav in the middle of 26. But now he deals with somebody who is just down. His spirits are down because he's not embarrassed, but he can't fathom the fact that he has struggles. His struggles are associated with such lowly realities. And as we mentioned, especially when it comes to thought, thought does play an important role in our Avodas Hashem and our service to God. The Torah says clearly we are not allowed, we are prohibited from entertaining our mind with certain immodest entertaining thoughts, or thoughts which can, from the perspective of the animal soul, the Yetzer Hara wants to entertain the mind with them, though Kadosh Baruch Hu clearly, decisively prohibits these thoughts. In other words, and the person entertaining one mind with these thoughts, and the yid feels that he's tormented by the challenge, or namely by the notion. He's dealing with the notion that how is it that I have these challenges? I thought I was a good kosher yid. I daven with passion, with chayis, vitality and passion, and I feel that I belong more, and I feel that my love is towards God, and that's the way I feel like that. I feel like that in shul, and I feel like that many times in my Avodas Hashem and different experiences, Shabbos, Yontiv, especially in the auspicious moments of my service to God. But in the overall, I feel I belong to the Tzaddik Dusha, to the Tzaddik Dusha. I'm careful in my learning Torah, and I'm doing mitzvahs, and I'm doing all that, and I'm careful in my leises, this which is prohibited. But I feel in certain areas that I have control. For example, not to speak Lashon Haras, they gave the example the other night. I close my mouth, I bite my tongue, and I just don't speak, even though I have a certain temptation. But it's something which I feel full control. But when it comes to aligning my thoughts with the way HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants my thoughts to be aligned, I feel there, like, what's the real me? Am I loving God, or I have this inclination to these things which can be lowly, and that itself brings the person down, and again brings the spirit down, and that's no good, as we said, because when the spirits are down, that's the easiest. That's when the Yetzer Hara feels the person, he has the person in his net. And again, based on what we learned, that it's crucial, it's important, it's essential. And throughout the person's Avodas Hashem, throughout his entire service to God, he stands with a state of joy and elation and so on, and this brings the person's spirit down. So what's he supposed to do? Says Al Rebbe, we explained before, again, as a follow-up of the past few classes, but even in the text last week, that it depends who wants. The problem is that from what perspective are you looking? Are you looking from the real perspective, from the Torah perspective, or you're looking from your own perspective, things which you believe that you are holding in this dark, in this level, in your service to God? Therefore you think, oh, how is it to have these challenges? Why am I inclined? Why do I have to fight my eyes and my thoughts and so on? I thought I'm part in the arena of Kedusha. Especially we're talking about a Yid who does all the important things. He follows all his obligations. Sur merav and aseitev. Bakish shalom v'ratfeil means like staying away from evil. He's careful b'chalalis generally in things which he's not allowed to do. He doesn't eat what he's not allowed to eat, and he's mehadir in mitzvahs. So when it comes to mitzvah say as well, he's scrupulous to do the mitzvahs kidiboy, the way Torah demands, and perhaps beyond with a hidur, Bakish shalom v'ratfeil. He's learning Torah, he keeps his shuri in Torah, and suddenly he has these challenges. So they could be depressing, or they could bring they're likely to bring the person's spirit down. So that for the person puts it in the right perspective, the Torah perspective, not that I believe that I'm in such a certain situation, say, how is it that I have these challenges? That's incorrect. You're not a tzaddik. You're not a tzaddik. A tzaddik doesn't have these problems. Because one of the definitions of a tzaddik is that he transformed his Yetzer Hara. He doesn't have any Ra, which means his Yetzer Hara was transformed to Teiv, to Kedusha. His Lashon Zeir became like Yetzer Teiv Mamash. Now, go explain somebody. I mean, people, the average person, we don't understand. What does it mean Yetzer Teiv became like Yetzer Hara became Yetzer Teiv? He doesn't have these challenges. The healthy person doesn't have these challenges. What does that mean? It's hard to fathom because we're not tzaddikim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kilni midvari. We're not tzaddikim, so it's hard to fathom. But a tzaddik doesn't have, like it said Avraham, his heart was nemel ufanecha, not his heart, his nefesh alikis, his godly soul. Every Yid's godly soul is, because it's a part of God, it's obviously aligned with God, and godliness has no other interest. But his Yetzer Hara was nemon, stood with complete integrity with his Creator. Or it says by David HaMelech, Harigi b'tainis. He fasted so much he killed the Yetzer Hara. As the Gemara says, V'li bichol b'kir, he was devoid of any ra. His Yetzer Hara became like Yetzer Teiv. So they don't have problems. Tzaddikim don't have these problems. When we consider ourselves as a tzaddik, that's when we feel down, when we're challenged by these challenges. But we're not tzaddikim. And if we're not tzaddikim, once we put it in perspective, we are not tzaddikim. And the expression is in a number of places, halavaya beinani. And the message over here is that kol adam has to aspire to be a beinani, not necessarily a tzaddik. And even to be a beinani, it's a whole aveda. Because remember, we said, and we made it very clear, a beinani doesn't sin once. Not only in action, not only in speech, but not only even in thought. But the difference of a tzaddik and a beinani is, even though a beinani never goes out of line, he's always aligned with the Ratzon Hashem, with the desire of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He's careful in every single leisasa, action, in speech, and in thought. He's careful with every positive mitzvah. He learns Torah to every moment that he can learn Torah. So what's the difference of him and a tzaddik? The difference of him and a tzaddik, that the beinani is his heart is in full tact. It's a fundamental difference between him and the tzaddik. That's what Lashon is. Al-Tzaddik is Kirash. His Yetzer Hara is in full tact. His Yetzer Hara presents him the same presentation like the Yetzer Hara of any bum on the street. Excuse my expression, but anybody else. That's the Beinani. His Yetzer Hara was lei nepach ligamri. It didn't have any dent. It wasn't transformed. So what are you getting so excited if you have an inclination or you have to fight off something which the Yetzer Hara is presenting to you, which is not kosher to look at, to think about, and so on? What is so excited? Or why is it bothering you so much? Because you have Yetzer Hara. Wake up and smell the coffee. You have Yetzer Hara. You're a Beinani. You're not a tzaddik. And this is what the Torah is saying. The Torah says you have a heart, you have eyes, and don't follow the eyes. The Torah itself establishing that you have this inclination which could lead you to znus, even though zaini means looking, but the Torah is precise with the Lashon expression of znus, something which is again immodest and inappropriate to look at or to think about. So Torah is telling you, identifying who you are, and Torah says do not follow. And Torah says clearly, you have a Yetzer Hara. So instead of being happy and simply being joyous from the fact that you can become yet another mitzvah, and not only another, prevent yourself from another Aveda, means to say you're doing another mitzvah by preventing yourself from another Aveda. This should be a reason for you to be joyful. As we gave the example last week, if someone had a mitzvah come to his hands every 5 minutes, here a little Venesig, and even a tefillin again, a little Venesig comes out once a year. We can only shake it a little Venesig once a day. But the notion that so many mitzvahs come to hand, this is a reason to be joyous, not chas v'shalom the other way around. There's not only 5 minutes, sometimes even every 5 seconds, sometimes even 5 milliseconds. So it's a reason to be happy that we're able to fulfill HaKadosh Baruch Hu's ratzon v'lo surach elvav machreinech. So when you want to falsify to yourself that you're a tzaddik, then you run into these problems. But you know very well you're not a tzaddik. Because a tzaddik is transformed Yetzer Hara. He has no problems. That's what it says over here. The Rebbe is not talking about tzaddikim to call them chas v'shalom zaynim. The tzaddik has none of these problems. That is what a tzaddik is. That he transformed Yetzer Hara. To us it's words. Because we can't identify what does that mean. Tzaddik doesn't have challenges? No, he doesn't have challenges. Go figure it out. Maybe they just want you make you a tzaddik one day. You'll understand. You'll appreciate it. And as long as you know that your Yetzer Hara is in full tact, just stop right there. You know you're not a tzaddik. Because again, a tzaddik is transformed. It says Avraham Avinu more than David because it's transformed them in Lufanecha. But again, we're not going to difference like Lashon of Yetzer and the Lashon of Zeir. Nasiki makes a teiv mamash. So we can't appreciate what does it mean he has none of these challenges. But one thing is clear: Torah is not calling tzaddikim zaynim chas v'shalom. Torah is talking about the Beinani, and the Torah is telling this Beinani you have a Yetzer Hara because like nepach legami you didn't make a real dent in the Yetzer Hara. You should aspire to do so, but in the end of the day, as long as you know the Yetzer Hara, nothing can be concerned. That's who you are. I want to get back to what I began before. I felt that there was missing clarity. It's not because it's a hara, therefore you can give in chas v'shalom to this temptation to freely look at something which Torah says is prohibited to look at, to freely think about, entertain your mind. Torah clearly says you're prohibited to entertain your mind with. That's not the message, because chas v'shalom, the moment you accept something willingly, advertently, purposely, even for a millisecond, knowing that it's something inappropriate, you're no more a Beinani. On the spot, you just drop from a Beinani to a Rasha. As the famous Gemara, the Gemara says that even someone does the smallest of it is called a Rosh. And if you have the ability to pull your eyes of something and you willingly, deliberately look at this which is prohibited to look, you're called a Rosh. So what we mentioned last week, based on if someone, those who followed precisely, or followed on the overall this beautiful sequence of the Prakim up till now, understood exactly what we meant, but perhaps it wasn't brought out adequately clear. The Alter Rebbe is not saying because you're a Beinani, therefore you're not in charge, and therefore it's okay if you fall through. Therefore, don't be depressed, stand in a down spirit because this is who you are. Chas v'chalila. Because the moment a Yid accepts something deliberately, he realizes it's something inappropriate, and he still continues to think and entertain his mind with it. He's Avraham mitzvah. He's no more a Beinani, he's a Rasha. A Beinani le'over aver miyom. A Beinani never sins. Not only in action, not only in speech, but even in thought. A Beinani, by definition, never sins. The only thing is the difference of the Beinani and the Tzaddik, which obviously never sins, but the Tzaddik doesn't have the challenge. The Beinani has the Yetzer Hara, which is completely, fully intact. It says only by davening and special and by special moments throughout his lifetime that he could experience to some degree the experience of the tzaddik. It's by davening. It's again nothing to do, not so much because of his effort, his contribution. It says more so. It says namely by davening, there's a certain window which is open l'maylo, which allows the Beinoni to tap in to some degree to the avodah of the tzaddik. That these are special moments. Other than that, the Beinoni has the Yetzer Hara, which is Yetzer Hara isn't fully intact. So this is the difference with him and the Yetzer Hara. He has the Yetzer Hara. And when we say that Eibushter is talking to these Beinanim and tell them, it means that you'll have Yetzer Hara to Chas v'Shalom want to entertain your mind or your eyes, etc. But you don't do that because then you're not a Bein anymore, you're a Rasha. But the problem which is bringing you down, that I talk and you feel, how is it that I have these lowly taivas? Calm down, you're not a tzaddik. You're not a tzaddik. Doesn't matter how much you shake by Shemana Esra or whatever it is, or you want to believe you're not a tzaddik. Because a tzaddik doesn't have these problems. And he says, Eina kodesh, Eina kosu medaber b'tzadikim. The kodem zeim chashom. The pasuk does not speak about tzadikim to call the tzadikim zeinim chas v'shalim. It's bebeinini ki yetzvei. Beinim is similar to beinish. Neifim leimachshir huri niu b'machshavtei. That because Yetzer has Yetzer Hara and Yetzer Hara isn't fully intact, it falls. It could trigger him. It could tantalize him. These negative thoughts of immodest thoughts in his mind, being beheter, this which is associated even with the broader package of permissibility, or chulu, in other words, this which is in his thoughts based on certain permissible states in his life, based on the heter which Teda is matir him, but nonetheless it's not only about asiyo, it's about hirhuri niu v'machshavtei, which is prohibited, is a prohibition, even though the whole setup could be beheter. And how much more so, which means how much more so when you're dealing with isur. So shmasir daite, when you avert your mind from this taiva, from this lust, from temptation, you're mekayim lav zeh. You're fulfilling a lav. You're doing something phenomenal. You're doing something great. You're doing something special. There's a reason to be joyful, not chas v'shalom the other way around. There's that Azal tells Yoshev Aveira. Someone sits and doesn't do Aveira, which means he has a temptation to do Aveira, and he holds himself back. They give him reward as if he did a mitzvah. And in this case, you are doing a mitzvah. And additionally, there's so much reward comes your way, Valkain. And therefore, what should be the result? You have to rejoice with fulfilling a lav. And if this lav comes in every 5 seconds or maybe every 5 milliseconds, which sometimes it does, as we all know it, but you push that thought away, you make again the lav and again the lav. Maybe kimet say mamash. So just like when one goes ahead and shakes a little of an esrik, he does it with simcha. I have the ability to connect to Kadosh Baruch Hu through that particular mitzvah. So when you have the temptation to violate a lav, and you make sure this, you stand strong, you don't violate a lav, you should be equally joyful, equally joyous, just like you're doing a mitzvah. He says, Adelab, on the contrary, your atzvus, your downness, your down spirit, or your melancholy, it comes from your ego. Your gaiva, your narcissism, or your ego, to say it more correctly. You don't want to recognize your place, and it means where you're really holding or where you're really not holding in your Avodas Hashem. Therefore, your heart feels bad that you're not on the level of a tzaddik, but you're not being honest with yourself. You're not on the level of the tzaddik. But because you feel you think so highly of yourself, you feel so haughty, your ego is so overly inflamed, and you believe you're a tzaddik. That's where you have the problems.
But you don't have to believe you're a tzaddik. I mean, you still have thoughts which I find, they're not the thoughts that I would rather not have, and the most inappropriate times. So just because I feel that, it doesn't mean that I think I'm a tzaddik. I mean...
No, when a person's bothered that he has these challenges, that's where he's lying to himself. You're bothered that you have these challenges?
I'm not bothered.
If you're bothered that you have these challenges, that's where the person's lying to himself. Because he believes, I'm this chashuv guy. My shmanes is 5 minutes after everybody's. So I'm the chashuv guy in town. I should have these problems. So it brings him down. So you're not honest with yourself. It's because your ego is so inflamed, rather, that you feel because this, that, the other, you're a tzaddik. But you're not making mekim, you're not being realistic with yourself. That's why you feel bad. I'm not doing a tzaddik. So then you become depressed. How you talking? I have these lowly challenges. And the truth of the matter is, we go on with the text. The truth tzaddikim, these thoughts of silliness and folly and nonsense never fall into the life of the mind of the tzaddik. And that's the truth about a tzaddik. Which, by the way, parenthetically, watch out when you judge true tzaddikim. You be careful in their calls that you should not get burnt. Oy vavoy, if someone who's divrei tzadi begav avuz, like it says in Tehillim. But especially in this case, when one wants to try to translate, put his lowliness in comparison, put it in the same platform as the tzaddik, it's just chutzpah. Because the tzaddik truly doesn't have these problems. He doesn't have these shtusim. He doesn't have these irurei shtus. And when you do, you're already at a different level than the tzaddik. But you do, and you feel bad that you have these challenges, it's because you don't want to recognize who you are. If you be honest with yourself, and you would recognize your place, excuse me, you recognize your true state. Excuse me. You recognize your true state. Not only you're distant from the level of a tzaddik, but the lashon over here is yerochik me'ed. You're very distant from the level of the tzaddik. Now, the Rebbe adds, let's be honest, by halavai or your beinani. Halavai, you would have been a beinani throughout the entire 24 hours. That despite all your temptations, you would have been careful. Halavai, you couldn't be honest with yourself and say, I was careful wherever I could have been careful. In action, in speech, and in thought. Meaning, and again, let's just try to elaborate in both. In mitzvah say, every mitzvah came to my hand. I did it right, and I did it the way I was supposed to do it. When it came to learn Torah, I try to utilize every moment that I have to learn Torah, and every mitzvah which is associated with action, speech, and thought. I would mechaven in tefillah. I do all the right things the way I'm supposed to do them. Again, mitzvah say, mitzvah loisesa. I stay away from everything I'm not supposed to do. Maybe in action, maybe in speech. I'm truly zayir, not to speak lashon hara, or not to speak in any way which is not the way, an appropriate way it speaks. I'm truly careful in my thoughts, chas v'shalom, not to allow my thoughts to veer off in the wrong directions. Take the last 24 hours and see if you were even a beinani, because a beinani is careful. A beinani is 100% aligned with Ratzon Hashem. Like we said, because if someone's not, he's a rasha, and a beinani is someone who never sins. Excuse me. So let's be honest. He says, "Halavai ya beinani," which is a famous expression amongst Chassidim for so many hundreds of years. Halavai ya beinani. Be honest. Examine yourself where you're holding the weight of the beinani at tzaddik. Since when? Why would you think you're a tzaddik? Why in the world do you think you're a tzaddik? It's just because you're a gas ruach you think you're a tzaddik. You're not a tzaddik. And halavai, you'd be a beinani. Challenge, examine truly in front of the Eibishter, which is a beichin kloyas v'leiv, which examines heart, and the klois of the person, in the most deepest parts of the person, HaKadosh Baruch Hu examines, stand in front of that God and understand He's a mabit olav. He looks at you and he's nitzav Hashem, nitzav olav, mabit olav. You in front of that Eibush to examine your last 24 hours and see how much you were into beinani, how many times you weren't careful, machshava divrei ma'aseh, where you were supposed to be careful. Again, maybe it's the same as leises, and realize that you still have a lot of work even to be the perfect, the beinani, which it doesn't do any avedis. So you're bothered that you're not a tzaddik. Halavaya beinani. You're not a rasha all your days, if you shachas, which again Chassidim always contemplate in this way of reading it, or that you were a rasha all your days, or even beinani kol yamav, like v'lei rasha fil shachas, that you examine yourself, that you were, how many times you fell chas v'shalom, you were not careful in being the beinani, hence you were a rasha, like we said, someone violates even machshava. One violation, a person's already called a rasha. So examine yourself if you're truly even a beinani and not a rasha. Even shachas, kol yomov. So you have a problem. Your question is, you're sad that you're not a tzaddik? Alavaya beinani. And work on something which really is attainable to you and is demanded from you. Because zeis midas ha-beinanim, this is the midah, this is the level of the beinanim b'avedasam, and their aveda lich b'shei yetzer, meaning that they have a yetzer hara, but they have to, their aveda is to conquer the yetzer hara, v'hahirur ha'olam ha'lev l'mecha, these thoughts which ascend from heart to mind, that they will ascend, but your aveda is to conquer them, or to conquer the yetzer hara, and to conquer those thoughts. Or lasich daita legabe men, when it comes to mind, to completely avert them, to completely stay away from them, push them away, and to be masiach das, in other words, not to accept them. And your service is just to push them away with two hands. Don't have any questions why they're coming. They're coming because you have yetzer hara. But your avodah is to push them away every time they come, and it doesn't matter if they come every second or every millisecond. The Rebbe says the lashon over here, which was interesting. We explained this lashon. The Rebbe brings it a few times, or namely in the 12th chapter. What's a shtei yadayim? What do you push it with both hands? Because sometimes in our Avodas Hashem we believe, oh, with the frumiyid, I'm going to chas v'shalom entertain my mind with that. Torah says you're not allowed to, so I push it away. But on the other hand, it's like pushing it away with one hand. I'm the frumiyid. On the other hand, come. Allow it to. You allow it to flow in the direction where Yetzer Hara allows to flow, but on the other hand, for me, it's chas v'shalom, so just like it's an expression like, no, chas v'shalom, but it's okay. The Rebbe says it's a matter of l'shtchesi b'shtei yadayim. You got to push it off completely, in absolute terms, with absolute efforts, or absolutely push it away. B'shtei yadayim. And the Eibush does a bech and klois v'lev. He knows if it's b'shtei yadayim, and that is the aved of the beinani. And you should know, b'chol tchiyah v'tchiyah, don't undermine or underestimate your efforts, or don't underestimate what you're accomplishing. You're accomplishing gdeilis in etzuris. You're accomplishing tremendous accomplishments every time you push away that thought. It's not just you're saving yourself from. No, this is your aveda. This is your service. Once we establish this is our service. And once we establish this as our service, we understand that we're accomplishing incredible accomplishments. As the Alter Rebbe is going to bring from Zayah, the Zayah says every time we push away something negative, the lashon of the Zayah is v'istalokus do yatir mikula. It's greater than all, or greater than many of our great achievements, which we feel that we can tap ourselves on the back. But when we do iskafia, we bend, we subdue the Yetzer Hara, especially when it comes to thought, which is, again, these are sensitive battles. And we are successful, we're accomplishing enormous accomplishments. And therefore it's a reason to rejoice. And because of a chol tchiyu machshavte, every time you push it away from your thought, you're subduing the klipa, the forces of evil down here, and because of your arousement down here, correspondingly in the heavens above, you're arousing the same notion, the same expression. The spirits of impurity in the heavens above are also being subdued. And there, because this is the forces of Sitra Achra, as we know many times over here in this realm as well. It's all about chutzpah, mechutzafim. The whole notion of klipin Sitra Achra is about chutzpah. To know something is emes and still speak against it, mock against it. It's mechutzafim. Sometimes in the faces, in the image of a Frum Yidden as well. Because that's what the midah of Sitra Achra is. It's about chutzpah. And the same thing Lamailo. The Sitra Achra knows what Kedusha is all about. It knows what the importance of the Kedusha, again, which is aligned with the Kodesh Baruch Hu, the Eibishter, sanctity, divinity. But it's Magbiat Mekanesh. It elevates itself with chutzpah, like a nesha, like an eagle. So, and when the person subdues the Yetzer Hara down here in this world, subdues the Sitra Achra, that evil force, which tantalizes the person, to say, look there, think that, and so on. And I say no. And I say no with both hands, which means in absolute terms. And I correspondingly bring down the Sitra Achra Lamailo in the heavenly realm. In the heavenly sphere, I bring it down as well. The Sitra Achra, meaning, say, the pure and evil forces, which are Magbiat Mekanesha, which elevates itself with chutzpah like an eagle. But I bring it down like it to I fulfill this, what it says in the pasuk in Nagbia Kanesh. In other words, my actions ultimately allow this, the fulfillment, or contribute, or is the cause of the fulfillment. In Tagbia Kanesher, which says that if you'll elevate yourself, which means it's a pasuk referring to the forces of evil. If you elevate yourself like an eagle, Hashem says, from there I'll bring you down, I'll crush you down. Who brings you down? It's all Mishameritcha, means I'll bring you down, but it comes from the service of the Yid, because we know that everything depends. The entire world and everything that happens in this world and this realm and every single realm in the heavens above is a direct result of man's actions, man's speech, man's thoughts. And the famous verse with know what's above from you, which is, again, we learn in the Pirkei Avos, which literally means look above and know what's above of you, we're referring to God. But the musician Shemagi touches whatever goes on in heaven above is mimoch. After the Malachim pause, mimoch, it comes from you. So he says that the Kedusha, the holy forces, will bring down the klipa, the imperious forces. It's because of your service. You do it down here. You allow this, the realization of this pasuk that in the heavens above, klipa v'sitra will be brought down and disintegrated and ultimately be obliterated. Like this says in Zayir Pashat Truma, which means he says it in such a strong, awesome, or in a wondrous manner. In Zayir, in the page the great satisfaction Hashem has. When you subdue the forces of evil which come your way, and you subdue them, in other words, you subdue the forces of evil which comes your way, in other words, or let's read it right, the great satisfaction what HaKadosh Baruch Hu has. So you think you're struggling and it's about a bad situation and so on. You should know the struggle is who you are. And this is your primary Aveda. And when you do it, you're causing the greatest satisfaction to the Almighty. And isn't that ultimately what we want in our service to God? To cause satisfaction to our Creator. Shall you know that every time you push away an inappropriate thought, you're causing great satisfaction to the Almighty above? To the Almighty, because you bring out the best, in other words, the greatest revelation of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. When you do so, and it's greater, it says, Yatir mishvach achara, it's greater than any other praise. And we'll stop over here where the text says this experience of bringing about the most deepest dimensions of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's why it comes into the expression of Istalkus, which means we have the HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the way he's Nislabish in Elamis is the lower dimension, Kaviyachal of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Lashon Shchinte, which is Mislabeshes V'Shechenes, and then the way the Eibishter is withdrawn That's the Lashon Histalkos, is withdrawn, the way the Eibush is for himself, by himself. That's why the Lashon Histalkos in this context is a very positive expression of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because the way the Eibush is abstracted, withdrawn from investment, which means the way the Eibush is for himself, by himself. This is ultimately in the revelation of this level of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the way the Eibush stands in its Tnuah Vistalkus, which means is the core essence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the way the Eibush is for himself, by himself, and we have the revelation of that comes directly as a result of the Yid subduing the Sitra Achra, subduing the temptations of the Yetzer Hara, which comes his way, maybe in action, maybe in speech, but namely over here when we're dealing with the more sensitive dimensions of a Yid Zaved Hashem when it comes to thought. So is there a reason to be sad and melancholy when it comes to this, to when you come to these challenges? Quite on the contrary. I know firstly who I am. I'm not a tzaddik. Period. And who knows better than myself that I'm not a tzaddik? Because I'm not a tzaddik, doesn't have these problems, doesn't have these encounters with these shtusim, which I know I do have it. If I'm only honest with myself, I do have it. Once I establish that, I diffuse my gasus or ruach, and I put things in perspective, and I know even Alavaya, I'm not only not a tzaddik, Alavaya Beinani. But one thing I know, my mandate is to be the Beinani, to know that I have a Yetzer Hara, but nonetheless I'll never allow the Yetzer Hara to triumph over me, not only in action but in speech, but even in thought, my eyes and ears and so on. And shall you know, and shall we all know, that when we do so, we're bringing about the greatest Nachas Ruach to Kadosh Baruch Hu. Is there any reason greater? Is there any greater a notion which could bring joy to the person, knowing that he's bringing nachas ruach to his God, and not only personal satisfaction to his Creator, the deepest dimensions of God is revealed and comes to the surface as a result of my subduing the Yiddish and my subduing my type, my temptation down here in this world. So it's a reason to rejoice, not chas v'shalom, the opposite. Have a great night.